Welcome to Follow Me to the MROP, a podcast dedicated to the journey of the masculine soul and the transformative power of initiation. My name is Gary Meagher. I live in suburban Dayton, Ohio, and I made my rites at Pilgrim Park in Illinois in 2014. I'm your host, and in each episode of our show, I'll sit down with one man who has made his rites, and I'll invite him to tell his story. This won't be an abstract explanation or a theological lecture, just a real conversation about what it was like to cross that threshold at the rites and what changed afterward. Before we begin, a quick word of gratitude. This podcast is brought to you by Choosing Presence. We believe that the greatest gift a man can give his community is his own presence. In a world of constant distraction, Choosing Presence provides the tools to help you stay grounded in the now. If you'd like an easy way to begin learning about the practice of presence, you can download the free Practicing Presence app at choosingpresence.org/app. Now, the Men's Rites of Passage, or MROP, is an experience designed to help men move from the first half of life into the second, shifting from a focus on ego and achievement to a life of meaning and soul. On this show, we just don't talk about the rites in theory, we talk to the men who have walked the path. Today, we are joined by a man who has made his rites, and we're going to hear exactly what that journey looked like for him. My guest today is Gary Meagher. Brother, I'm really glad you're here. Thanks for making the time and for being willing to share your story.
Oh, no, thank you, Brian. Thank you for asking me.
Gary, tell us where you're from and how you spend your time these days.
Oh, Lordy. I'm from planet Earth, but my home is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I am a proud Badger. I have lived most of my life here. I spent time in New York City and Chicago, professionally and school-wise, but and spent most of my life in the Madison and Milwaukee areas of Wisconsin. And I have been lucky enough that for the past many years I'm retired. I spent wandering after college. I worked for a textbook publisher. I thought I was going to be a rare book dealer, and I went to school for that and worked in the trade for 5 years. I realized there's no way to support a family, so I found a company that was very nurturing and foresighted, and it was in the printing industry, which I knew nothing about, but they said, well, we'll take you on and we'll train you. And 26 years later, I retired. It was a good ride. It was a very good ride.
Now let's dive in and talk about the Men's Rites of Passage. The MROP is a unique experience. It's not a retreat or a workshop, it's an initiation. Many men arrive at the rites at a crossroads in their lives, looking for something they can't quite name. Before we dive into the why and the how, let's start at the very beginning. When and where did you make your rites?
When and where? Okay, well, now I'm really aging myself or dating myself. It was 2008. So that's coming on 18 years ago. It was in Illinois. I was watching the Center for Action and Contemplation's calendar and saw that there was going to be what was called a Men's Rites of Passage in Illinois at a place called Pilgrim Park. And I had been stalking, my wife and I had been stalking Richard Rohr for many years, and I was aware of his wild man work that he had been doing, and also that he had been going and created this thing called the Men's Rites of Passage. So I thought, well, I think I'm ready. I was 55 at the time, hitting that point where you become a little more reflective, or the past is speeding away from you, and the future looks kind of dark or hazy. So I thought, I'm going to do it. So I went to Pilgrim Park, signed up, and the weaver was Richard Rohr, and the Ritual Elder was Stephen Picha, who was the director at the CAC at the time. And I distinctly remember, this may be your next question, Brian, so I don't want to jump all over this, but I distinctly remember driving to it. It felt like I was almost on a dream, crossing the flat plains of Illinois and then getting into the river valleys of north central Illinois, where Pilgrim Park is, and descending from these cornfields down into this valley. It was almost like a cradle or a womb or a grave, whatever you want to call it, but down to Pilgrim Park. And there was a man standing there welcoming me. His name was Bill McElroy. I went and parked my car. There was another man named Bob Colorisi welcoming people in and giving everyone a hug. Both those guys, to this day, are two of my closest friends. So it was a good beginning, a very good beginning.
In general terms, how would you describe that weekend for yourself?
Uh, it was a blur. That's about as general as I can get. Uh, it was definitely a blur. Uh, yeah, I had read a couple of the books. I don't know if Adam's Return was put out at that time, but I had read from Wild Man to Wise Man and some of Richard's early books, Why Be Catholic, and so on. So I had a general idea of the path that I was hoping the rites would go on. I thought, okay, I'm going to bring some books and read them when I'm in nature. Until I realized, no, books are locked up. This is not about going somewhere else. This is about going inward. So yeah, I think I'm straying from your question here, but how would I describe that week? It went by very fast and very slowly. When you're in liminal time, traditional time takes on a whole different dimension. And felt like I was suspended. I think it was a look back, sort of suspended between here and there.
Now, without sharing anything you consider confidential, tell us about some of the elements of the rites that stood out for you.
Well, they were, I think, the rites in particular had a certain amount of shock value to me, which is probably exactly what I needed to take me out of my thinking head, my thinking frame. They were visceral. I kept trying to retreat into an intellectual, perceptive mode, and the rites would not allow me to do that, which is exactly what they're meant to be. So my I guess reaction to the rites were there was sort of it just felt like I was floating or suspended.
Was there one particular event or ritual or interaction even that you had that really stands out to you in reflection?
Well, there are many. The story I tell over and over again that really doesn't reveal what the rites are about is the first day after arriving, after spending a night in the cabin. I was at breakfast, and there was a seat open next to me, and Richard Rohr came over and sat down, and he said, "Oh, hi, I'm Richard. Hi, I'm Gary," and so on. He said, "Well, how did you sleep last night?" And I said, and being sort of a wiseacre, I thought, okay, well, I said, I slept about as well as you could expect, considering I was on a 1-inch mattress. It was on top of a plywood board, surrounded by 7 men who were snoring. And he leaned in and he said, "That's exactly the point." And I thought, oh, damn, I flunked the test. But what he was telling me is that this is liminal space. This is not meant to be easy. This is not meant to be a retreat. This is meant to be a journey. So that still sticks out with me. And I tell that story to anyone who will stop and listen. But there are many, many other images from those 5 days that stick with me. But I think that that was a good opener.
Well, you mentioned earlier that you and your wife knew about Richard for a while and were familiarizing yourself with his work and following the CAC, and you learned about the Brendan's Rites of Passage. But can you talk a little bit about the circumstances in your life? What was going on at that time that kind of led to your participation, or just happened to be coincidental with your participation?
Sure. No, it's as I said, I was 55, and at that time the CAC, which was running the rites, kind of said, if you're 55 or older, maybe you're too old. I thought, oh man, have I missed this? And unfortunately, that's been revised and rethought through. But I was at that point. My kids were in college. The mortgage was getting paid off. I was living comfortably, but I knew I hungered for a deeper dive. I hungered for a deeper dive. I like to kind of equate our journey into, especially the rites and the work that Illumin does, is jumping into the deep end of the pool, where you have nothing underneath you. I also like it, maybe using the image of a pearl diver. You go down into the unknown, you find these clams, and you look for the pearl. You look for that great connection in the deep end. So I think that's what I was searching for. I was searching for something greater, something that would make me, that would help my journey. I understood that I was on a journey. I understood that if I did not take a few steps, my journey might take me in a different direction. So that was pretty much my state of mind at the time. I was ready. I was definitely ready, and I was open. But what I got, who knows? It still reverberates.
I hear you saying that you were maybe hoping for some personal and spiritual growth at the rites. Was there anything that you feared in attending the rites?
Well, you go into something like this, and my makeup on the Enneagram, I'm a 5. I'm an oldest child of 4 boys. Vulnerability is not something we like to do or show very well. So I was not comfortable or prepared necessarily for the amount of vulnerability that was required during these rites. So that was a big thing. I'm not certain if I'm answering your question or going in a different direction here, Brian. But that's kind of my as I look back at myself 18 years ago. I think that was a big part of it.
Now, as you got in your, so the rites ended. It's a big event. It lasts parts of 5 days, but there does come there is a moment when you're able to pack up and drive away. You're heading back to Milwaukee. How did you feel immediately after the rites?
I felt very calm. I felt very calm. I was grateful for my 3.5 hour drive back because it just felt like, okay, I need this time. Again, I feel like if I had not come back down to earth, I almost felt like I was floating. I I knew it was going to take. I didn't know what hit me. I don't. At that time, I did not know what hit me. I still don't. It's the rites provide doorways into mystery, and there was certainly a lot of that. I returned to work the next day, which might have been a mistake, but I felt like I was skipping upstairs. And everyone I saw was saying, "Oh, it's a good day for great things." And they sort of scratching their heads, like, "Okay, give me some of that drug you're on." But it was a high. There was definitely a high that, like all highs, does not last. There comes a point where, okay, gravity takes over, and you come back, and you need to sort of say, "What hit me? What happened here?" So my initial period afterwards summed up like that.
Well, this is broadening that a little bit, but what has changed in your life since making the rites? Practically, relationally, spiritually.
Well, I'll tell you a couple things here. I found the rites open doors. They presented doors and they opened doors to me. Doors that I continue to walk through. Doors that I'm perhaps not reluctant to walk through. Doors into liminal space that lead maybe in different directions, all pointing you into who am I, to the question of understanding myself, understanding my relationship with our Creator, with our Creator's Earth, with our relationships. So I would say that in the long run, the pathways that have been opened up probably would not have been as clear to me as they became. A case in point, I was in college. I was an English major. I hopped around from history to psychology. I thought, okay, English is what really speaks to me. A classic English major degree is Chaucer, Shakespeare, and Milton, and maybe American literature, stuff like that. Well, I experienced the ecstatic poets. I experienced metaphor that were not introduced to me through the sort of the classic education system. And those are points and those are paths that I continue to follow, especially in poetry, especially in the arts and seeing the world. The man who was who I mentioned was the Ritual Elder Stephen Picha. I distinctly remember him standing up at the end of the rites. Now, I don't think I'm giving anything away here to men who have yet to experience it, but he said, as you go back into your life, there are three things you must embrace. You must embrace the natural world, become comfortable with it, do not be a stranger to it. You must embrace contemplative practice or practices, be they centering prayer, be they chanting, be they dancing, be they any of the branches on the tree of contemplative practices. And thirdly, you really should find a community of men, like-minded men. So those are three things that I still clear as a bell can hear that being said, and there still are sort of north stars that I continue to follow. I came back. Another man who had been through the rites at the same time with me, we looked at each other and said, well, let's start a men's group. And we got a list of men in our area, sent out an email, gathered, and 17 years later, we're still gathering. We're still meeting. We're still talking. I also joined a centering prayer group, a centering Lectio group. 17 years later, they're still nourishing my journey. And the nature part, I just can't get enough of. So those are some of the things that have the signs that I keep following in my life.
So before you went to the rites, did you have conversations with people about attending the rites, and what were those like?
None. Of all my long answers, that's easily the shortest. I wasn't really certain what I was getting into. The descriptions were vague, purposely so. They were sort of mysterious. Just said, be open. Be open. So I really didn't speak to any of the men who were planning it, or even I had not connected with any man who had been on it. I came with a lot of trust.
But afterwards, did you have conversations with people? You said you went back to work the next day.
Oh yes, yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
No. That's actually just the extension. I want to see if things have flipped one way or the other.
Well, oh yes. The conversations don't. Interestingly enough, I think I mentioned a couple of men I met during my entry to the Pilgrim Park area. I would say there are at least a half dozen men who also attended the rites when I did, and there were over 80 men on that from all over the world. But at least a good half dozen, maybe double that, who I still consider very good friends, who I still walk shoulder to shoulder with on our journey. Processing the rites afterwards, as it was a challenge, and I think it's becoming easier now. I think we have created pathways and tools to help men connect and process it. But at that time, it was like the instruction was on the 30th of the month, reach out to the other brothers who were in your small group. And we did that for about 2 months. It was all email. It wasn't very satisfying. We all kind of dropped it or drifted away. But other conversations continue to evolve. I love that poem by Rilke where he says, I live my life in ever-widening circles. And I can to continue to travel in those ever-widening circles that really started with the rites. Or I don't think, no, I shouldn't say that. They were enhanced by the rites. I think my life has always been hopefully moving outward in circles, but I mean, it was turbocharged by the rites.
Now, you think you've fully realized the impact of the rites on your life, or is that an ongoing journey? Are you still having new revelations?
Oh yeah. No, it's the journey is outward and it's inward. The inward journey is one of reflection and discernment. The outward journey is connection, I think, and both those directions, they still resonate. There's a case in point. There's a Japanese adage that I love that says there are three things are to be feared and hated. You might have heard this: earthquakes, fires, and fathers. Well, I don't have a problem with my father. My father and I get along really well. This is, what's up with that? But I saw a lot of men who really struggled with the wounds of neglect and wounds of expectation and so on. And I came to understand and appreciate more the relationship that I have had with my father. It continued to open up, and it became a path of appreciation, of understanding him and where he was, the journey that he had been on, and my journey, and how we had come to that point. My parents were very young when I was born. They were 22, which now seems almost should be illegal. But I was born 9 months later, and I've come to realize, I was probably raised as an experiment. Neither of my parents really knew how to raise kids. As I said, I'm the oldest of four. But I've come to really appreciate their challenges and where they were coming from. And my father passed away a couple of years ago at the age of 93. But after my mother died 6 years earlier, I was his primary companion. He lived 90 miles away, but I would be helping to take care of him, get his finances in order, getting his apartment shut down and stuff like that. But we really walked a path of equals, which was, I hope that I would have had that experience without the rites, but I'm not certain that I would have. And so,
I know you not only as a man that has participated in the rites of passage, but now also is actively involved in offering men's rites of passage and supporting that journey for other men. So, how has that experience changed your understanding of masculinity, initiation, and even the male purpose in life?
oh, brother, that's a loaded question. As I said, I participated in the first men's rites of passage that Illinois put on in 2008. Uh, I was blessed to be asked back 2 years later to help out with that team, and I've been a member of the men's rights team ever since. Every year, except for the year that you did it, Brian. I was an observer there. I wasn't part of the team, but each year I'm very grateful for the opportunity to help and participate in and create the container for men who are there. But also, it helps deepen my appreciation of what the rites have meant to me. And it's brought more clarity. I think most men who go through the rites, and the rites are not for everyone. I've met men who came away saying, "Yeah, okay, I can check that off my bucket list." Yeah, it was interesting, but not earth moving. But other men who just say it's transformative. They can look at the time before and after. And as I continue to help out and participate in my chapters, offering the rights, it grows. It grows and it grows and grows. And at this point, if I may put in a plug for those who feel that way, if you've been to the rites, most likely you come away going, "What hit me?" What happened? And thus, Illumin has created an initiator program to allow men to come back and experience that 5-day journey from a different perspective. And if I had not had that opportunity by working on that, I think I would be much different right now.
I'm glad you mentioned the Initiator Program. In other conversations, the elder rights has come up, but to date, none of us have just talked about the Initiator Program. Let me invite you to say a little bit more about that, specifically because you and I are going to be working with initiators this summer at Pilgrim Park when the Illinois Rites happens in August.
Right, right. Well, it is a program that has been evolving and developed, and it is an invitation for men who have participated in the men's rites of passage to return. And it is a parallel program. I need to stress that it's a parallel program. You're not doing the same thing that the men who are going through the rites for their first time, but you have your own circle. You have your own leaders. In this case, Brian, it'll be you and me. You have your own prompts, rituals, an opportunity for deep sharing. At the same time, you are asked to be a witness, to open your arms and hold the container for those men who are there. You may be asked to haul some lumber, some wood, some firewood. You may be asked to set something up to help clean up afterwards. But overall, it's an opportunity to be in that sacred space for those 5 liminal days.
That's terrific. I told you at the outset that I don't like to insert too much of my experience into these conversations. I really want to have my guests' experiences to shine forth, but I also want to prove that you're not chatting with an AI, Gary, and tell you that you know I don't know if this is a common experience, but the rites were such a transformative and powerful experience for me. As I left the rites, my first instinct was, "Wow, I survived that. I'm never coming back." And the 2 years later, I was back as an initiator. And, it speaks to me to the power of that experience to even draw you back, even when it was, for me, on some level, overwhelming. But that experience as initiator was so powerful and formative in my ongoing, relationship and entering into the community and has informed my own, ongoing commitment to support the rights. So I'm excited about joining you there for this Initiator program, but also, even as men who've been there before, you're always a little tentative.
I found the word haunting keeps coming up when I think about my rights. They kind of haunt you, not in a bad way, but in a good way. You yearn to return to that place. This is a real sidetrack, but a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity, the privilege to walk the Camino de Santiago in Spain. It was an experience that when I finished my walk, it was 38 days. I met people from all over the world, but I got home and I felt empty because I wasn't there again. It was haunting. It just sort of was like one of those top level experiences that you yearn to go back and experience over again. Some of the people I've met along the way in Spain have returned. They it's the same refrain. What was that? How it was. How can I process that? And I would put the men's rites of passage right there with that type of experience. That are very few in our lives. There are very few in their lives like that.
I just have one more question for you, Gary, and that's what counsel or advice would you offer to a man who's now discerning whether or not to participate in the rites?
Well, I've become a men's rites of passage junkie, I think, because I've been helped out with so many of them. So I would say, open your heart, open your gut, get out of your mind. If the call is there, answer it, and talk to other men. Talk to other men who might have done it, who you respect and might be able to give advice. But I would say, listen to your heart. Listen to your heart.
Brother, thank you. Really, I love you, and I appreciate your honesty, your courage, and thank you for giving us a window into your MROP experience.
No, thank you, Brian. It's been a privilege.
For those listening who are now feeling a tug in their own soul and are curious to learn more, allow me to share a bit about the history of these rites. The men's rites of passage was originally developed by Father Richard Rohr and was first offered at Ghost Ranch, New Mexico in 1996. While it was supported for many years by the Center for Action and Contemplation, since 2012, Illumin has been the steward of this work, preserving and adapting the rites for men all over the world. To learn more about the history and the theology behind this work, I highly recommend reading Adam's Return by Richard Rohr. If you are ready to make your rites, there are 4 opportunities in the United States and another in the United Kingdom in 2026. The first is in Northern California, May 13th through the 17th. The second in the United Kingdom, July 22nd through the 26th. And in Illinois, August 12th through the 16th. There's one on the East Coast in New Jersey, September 16th through the 20th. And the final one of the year is in Texas, which is in MROP and Umbrales, our Spanish language rites, September 30th through October 4th. You can find details and registration information at illumin.org/MROP or illumin.org/events. Additionally, mark your calendars for Awaken, the annual national gathering of Illumin, taking place November 5th through the 8th in New Mexico. You can find more at illumin.org/awaken. Finally, a special thank you to our sponsor, Choosing Presence. If today's conversation moved you, I encourage you to bring more intentionality into your daily life. Download the Practicing Presence app for free at choosingpresence.org/app. It's a simple but profound way to stay connected to the journey we've discussed today. Thank you for listening to Follow Me to the MROP. Until next time, brothers, stay present.